Well, changing the wheels today. That's where I'm starting. I need to get that machine to lay flush on the bottom so I can weld the deck. I'm going for about 6 inches of clearance because, again, this is only going to cut the grass when it's too tall for the normal mower. So I picked these guys up. Also 3/4 inch. I pushed out the 2 pins, and these guys are on fucking solid, so I'll have to peen it from the outside. Now, when I bought these rims, I was looking at the center of this area here and the center of just the rim itself once I cut off those plastic tires. And it's about a 1/2 inch gap difference, but I mean, these are tapered, as you guys can see. But I could make shims. I could still weld them, like tack weld it, straighten them, weld them on full. That'd give me enough clearance. The other option is remove these completely and extend my shafts. 3/4 inch. I could just use cold rolled. I don't even need axle material. I have some too. That guy there, I got to leave clearance for a belt pulley right in between the wheels there, because that's where I'm going to be driving the rear wheels. So the rest will be cut off to make room for the tires. Picked them up from a grad sale. I paid 35 bucks for 2 tires, and I also got a seat for a Sears/Roper tractor that has a Cub Cadet seat cover, which is in pretty decent shape. That'll probably go on the loader. So it's actually direct bolt on. It actually has the same bracket, everything that my loader has. So that's a bonus. Yeah. Can't go wrong for that, I guess. But now I'm just deciding, do I want to take off those wheels to weld them first, or how I want to do it. It's not a keyed shaft. It's just drilled, and it had those 2 pins I pushed out. So got to go from there. And I'm on the chocolate milk card today. Well, I decided, looking at this, that shaft's just too small. I don't want to weld these in on the hubs. What I'm going to do, might sound expensive, but it's not. See the height of this? That goes up to about here on my finger. I'm going to cut 4 inches all off around here. Leave about 1 inch in between, above these guys here, right? 1 inch. Bend that straight. Be a good bottom panel. Yeah, then where's the axle going to go? Pillow block bearing right here. Pillow block bearing right in here. There's enough room. I'm going to get a new axle, and then I'll be able to put these on it. And I'm going to run from that sprocket right there. I got to watch out for that lever. If you guys can see that lever in there. That's better, hey? And I'm going to cut this out, reinforce this, and the sprocket's going to be right in here. So actually 1 bearing will have to be here, 1 bearing over here. It'll be a little bit offset, but again, it'll work. Well, it's now Sunday morning. Yep. It's going to be high at plus 30 outside, so it's going to be a warm one. So I got the AC cranked. Yepper. AC's cranked. Proxy's going to be inside as long as I can until I start cutting up some metal. And see what I get done today, because I got about, I don't know, a couple hours before the old man's back. Okay, so what I'm going to start by doing is I'm going to be cutting the metal here, roughly right in between the old bearing surface, all the way around here. The reason why I'm doing that is so the deck can sit a bit lower, the engine will sit a bit lower. Proxy supervising. Yeah, you're doing a good supervising, Poodle, aren't you? Yeah. Oh, big stretch there, Poodle. Yeah. Well, just gotta draw my lines and think of how I'm going to cut it. There we go. Got my lines drawn out where I need to trim it. And that's some pretty thick steel, but basically I want the bottom plate just to be above the sprocket here, or gear. The bearings, you can see, I'll turn on my light. You can see right there is the sprocket that drives the back wheels. Now I got the selector here for neutral, reverse, and everything that you can see kind of moves there. So basically the rear wheels are going to have to be mounted up high here, because I don't want all that crazy ground clearance, and I need to miss this with the chain. So the axle, everything will probably be kicked right down to the bottom here, which will mean with the tires and everything, I should have about 3 inches of ground clearance still, which should be plenty for this. So what I'm going to need to do now is probably grab a grinder and my cutoff wheel and start cutting. And then later on I'll have to clean this out, of course. And I think Poochie's going to have to go outside. Yeah, you can't be in here when I'm grinding. Your first Klingons to everything. Yep, you definitely are going outside. I turned on this grinder to verify it was still working, and right away she comes and tries to sniff the grinding blade. The reason why I was checking is in the pile of dead stuff here, literally grinders and stuff. That grinder was bad, so I had to test it, and yeah, she decided to come try to sniff the blade. Peroxide. What a mess here, hey? Holy crap. Now, I know I got tons. Those are all masonry ones in there, but as you guys can see, I got tons and tons of grinder disc. Literally everywhere. And somewhere in here, right there, is a whole container of them in that metal. So I probably got a couple hundred, but the ones I see that I want are right there at the top. Okay, so there's the side that I sliced off. Nothing has to be perfect because technically this is not going to touch anything. When I go to weld on the deck, mind you, I'll have to do some measurements, but I'll measure from the top of it, not the bottom. But there, she's cut off. Kind of screwed up a little bit on that side. But again, when I go to weld on the bottom plate, it won't matter too much. I'm also thinking I might just bend tabs and make a bolt on because, believe it or not, I know sooner or later I'm going to break one of these gears. Would not surprise me. And I stopped to give Proxy a can of food mixed with as much water as it could fit on the plate because she hasn't been drinking. And of course, now that I started talking, she stopped and, man, is she making a mess? I wouldn't lift that up off the floor, Proxy. But at least she's eating something. Okay, so I pretty much got the deck gutted. All the useless stuff that I don't think I'll be using because I plan to run electric PTO on this engine, which is right there all taped up in the blue tape. Now, I'm thinking once I mount that PTO on the engine, there's not going to be enough room to mount the second pulley to do the drive system. So even though it's more work, I might put a jack shaft. I'll have to see once I go to mount the engine, but everything is perfect here. Blade's nice and straight, nice and heavy duty, but again, chances are this blade will be switched out for something a little bit different later. For now, it's going to stay as a blade because it's not really going to be a brush cutter. It's just going to be a diesel lawnmower designed for tall grass. So yes, the blade will have to be sharpened and all that other shit. I'm not worried about that. This piece of metal here, which I guess used to string across here, is broken. I'll have to cut that off, and that's already cut down, sitting at its proper height. Everything's sitting nice and flush on the ground. So now I got to get ready to start making some supports. Now, I was thinking, you know, I'm not going to make this adjustable. I'm going to make it a fixed height. The front wheel or wheels will most likely be adjustable. The rear wheel, well, I can always get different tires or move the block bearings up and down on the back and adjust the belt or chain, I mean. That's kind of how I'm going to do it, but I kind of want it to be sitting this deck about 2 inches off the ground, maybe not 2 inches, probably actually I'd take that back because there's no slider. The blade's really close to the bottom of the deck. So I'm going to probably make it where it's about 3 to 4 inches off the ground. So it should leave the grass roughly about 3 inches tall. Okay, so now I got those metal 2x1 pieces underneath there by the exhaust that's going on this thing. Most likely I'll use that muffler. You guys see there's some metal underneath there. That's what I'm going to use to mount the deck. On a couple throttle controls, even a push choke one that might be a throttle. Now, I got this. This is a single pulley electronic PTO. I might not use that. I might get a dual pulley. I got some different battery brackets, all kinds of stuff. That's parts off those tractors over the years. Some miscellaneous surplus. I have no idea what these brackets were used for, but I'm thinking they would make good battery hold down. This is the drive shaft from the snapper, which will end up being my rear wheels. Yes, I'm going back down to 3/4 inch because the other set of wheels I have outside are actually about 3 inches taller than those, and I don't want to go that tall. So this will end up being my rear axle. Yes, it's not keyed in the center, but it's keyed on the ends. so the pulley slash sprocket will be welded on, as long as I can clean it up enough to get on that sprocket. What else did I find? Other brackets. This, if I decide to go one swivel front wheel, I'll be using this swivel bracket here. So the steering part there, I'll use that to swivel my front wheel. I do got a few other options for that. To be honest, I actually got parts off the old snapper, the entire front wheel assembly off the old snapper tractor outside. I could turn the front wheels into just caster wheels just by clearing out a little bit of space and raising up the bracket. So I can use those wheels for casters, these for the rear ones. But this thing will have some pretty bulky ass tires on it then. But the good thing about the caster style, I can just use washers to raise and lower the wheels. As for the back, well, they're going to be fixed. But of course, you can always cram up the front end for some taller grass, cut out the front of the deck. There's lots of ideas. Well, took off all the brackets as usual. Now I got to decide, do I want to leave a gap in between there, or do I want to weld it right on? Got to decide, got to decide, got to decide. Leave a gap or not to. From where the engine's sitting, you can see now the height, why I cut off the bottom of the frame. So that's how much I cut off. I had to straighten it after because my cuts were pretty crooked. The engine pulley is going to sit about 6 inches higher, roughly. Well, maybe not 6 inches. Yeah, well, that's a 10 horse and that one there's about 6 inches. But the bottom of the belt will be low because of the PTO clutch. Now, I could still mount this mower deck up higher. I could put some 1x1 wooden blocks welded on a bit higher, but I'm just not too sure if I want to do that yet. So I got to do a little bit of thinking in my brain. Again, I never drew any plans. I'm just going at it, so yep. And I'm also thinking that the wheels, I might decide to put the wheels underneath the center here instead of kicked out on the back. The reason why I say the center, it will make the machine a little bit more compact for in the future when I decide to make this into a radial controlled cutter, which is kind of what I'm thinking, by the way. So make it radial controlled maybe in the future, because I got lots of radial controlled controllers, radials, relays, everything. Well, here's an update on the brush cutter. Deck's all gutted down. Now I'm deciding, do I want to make it bolt onto the transmission, or do I cut these around here, weld this, weld that on? I'm using an old drive shaft from the snapper as the rear wheels. It's 3/4 inch. Those wheels are 3/4. These are the new wheels I picked up here. I did cut the bottom plate off the transmission. It's sitting right there. So I'm just deciding, do I want to put the wheels back here? Where do I want to put them? Because again, there's going to be the height of the engine. So you can see here, that's about center. So I'd have to mount the bearings roughly halfway down here. Make sure I got clearance for it. I'm just deciding, do I want to offset the transmission for the weight of the engine? Do I want to leave it centered? Because the pulley will be out on one side. Not too sure which side yet. Lots of ideas, lots of thinking. Don't know yet. Okay, so I just quickly chop these off. And one more thing I was thinking of is if I build another plate like this that reaches between them and is high like this, I can have multiple holes and mount this by bolting them in either one of the 3 holes. That is one option. Hard to say. A few seconds ago, Proxy was being a whiny puppy. I mean, running around, scratching the siding, trying to get in. I don't want her in when I'm cutting stuff. Not at all. She's too anxious or interested in the noises. I am going to sweep the floor and everything, but I'm using that to stop the sparks from flying across the garage. Piece of styrofoam that actually works surprisingly very well. So, and there's Proxy is now scratching at the house, trying to get into the house. Missed it. She was just up on the door there scratching. Oh, now she's inside, and hopefully I got a little bit of peace. Oh, no smoky in here. A little smoky in here, and it's not even showing up on the camera. But, oh, that powder coat they use on there stinks. Oh man, it's like it's 33 outside. There goes all the AC. There goes all my AC. God damn it, that sucks. That really sucks. Not going to show the welds because they look like shit. The tip of the welder is broken where the electrode, I guess, screws in, so it's only holding about like half a thread, so it's working like shit. But I'm pretty sure it'll hold. We'll see. If it blows up, it blows up. Well, after a lot of eating powder coat, everything's ready to go. I got my bracket made there. I'll weld the two together. Of course, I got dust paint everywhere, but let's see here. Of course, I'll have to straighten it after, but basically, it's going to go like that. I'm going to weld it from the top, weld it from the bottom, weld it from the sides, weld it everywhere, and there will be a bracket on the bottom. And I'm also thinking of doing a little kick legs because I got some random metal bits back there, 1 inch. I'm using all recycled metal, $2 a piece I paid for these bars here. So works good. Sure saves having to cut up my brand new metal up there. Well, going to straighten this all out, weld it in place, and see how it looks. Roxy, you're laying in the paint I just finished grinding. That is not good, but you were scratching to get in. Well, I got my bracket built there. Got a few touch-up welds to do, but that's the way it's going to go. I just got to make sure this is straight. Right now it's just roughed in place. Probably got to grind a little bit more. Get that everything to fit nice when I go to weld it. So basically, this piece here is going to be welded in. Yes, Proxy. I'm going to start by tack welding down in the crack here. Then I'm going to make a plate from the bottom. I might use also some kickstands here because, you know, diesel engine, vibration. It will probably never crack, but just in case. But Proxy, come on, you're being a pain in the butt. Being a pain in my butt. And of course there's a mess everywhere, and she was just begging to come in to see what I was doing, so decided to let her. And of course my welder overheated. I swear I can't even do a bead much longer than that one there, and the welder overheats. Like, that's so annoying. It really is. And I know I probably could have got away with just welding it directly on, but the idea of making this bracket here is if I need to move the engine up and down, I'm going to probably level that out with the top plate, as I have a top plate over here somewhere. Actually, I kind of buried it. Never mind. It's in this hoard somewhere. Engine plate that actually came off one of the used diesels. So that's kind of my idea. As for that bracket in the center there, I'm going to keep that there unless I got to cut it out of the way and go from there. But yeah, it's as straight as I can get it. I know it's hard to tell, but I measured from the very tip of this to the center of the shaft both ways. Seems to be straight. Whatever. I guess it doesn't really matter if it's cocked a little bit. Just the discharge would be a little bit different. Okay, so it's welded on the deck. I take it back. I should have cut this off right there. Freaking nailed my knuckle on it. But see what I mean about the booger welds right there? Yeah. And I'm wrong, it didn't overheat. It actually blew the breaker. 20 amp plug too. But again, I am welding on maximum temperature. So, yeah, shit happens. Well, you can see the welds penetrated nice there. Now I'm going to fill this side in. Yep. Might as well. I mean, again, I probably didn't need to make that second bracket. Just welding it like this most likely would have been good, but who knows how strong that front cover is on that transmission. And then you can actually see on this side here how well the welds penetrated too. But again, I'm worried about the front of this cover breaking off. That's why I'm still going to put some kickstands. And that's just kind of spot welded in place onto the transmission. I'm going to weld it a bit better at the very end. Okay, so I got that all welded in. Doesn't really look the nicest, but shit happens. See what I mean there? Looks like shit, but it's going to hold. It's going to hold. I put a couple blobs in each corner there. See, pretty good contact. We'll see. But I still want to put a plate across there. Now, I actually have the perfect plates to do that. Wasn't these ones. Actually, yeah, it was these ones. No, it wasn't those ones. These guys right here. I already know they're going to fit pretty close to perfect. Now, they're a little thin, so I might see if I can find something different. But they should fit in between there nicely. Look at that, eh? Just like that. Almost looks like it's meant to be. Just to make it a little stronger. Well, that, well, royally looks like shit. But we'll see. pretty thin metal. Well, welder just overheated. Always happens. Got about half an hour before my ends here, and I still want to weld the main bracket in. And of course, it's been 15 minutes and this thing is still too hot. Urgh. Shitty welder, shitty welder. Huh? Okay, those shitty welds are how it's going to look from the bottom. I am tempted to fill in that gap on both sides, but yeah, with that other bar, and I still plan to do sidebars, probably from about there to there. I'm sure it's not going to break. We'll see. Well, that's where it's staying for today. It's getting put away. The old man's going to be back in about 20 minutes from work, so I got to clean up this mess. But never even got really just tacked a couple times there, a couple times on the bottom of that bracket in place. Needs a little bit more welding. Again, welding it directly on the bottom there might have held it. But again, I'm probably going to extend that engine plate. Hard to say. That pulley might end up getting raised up yet. I might have a jack shaft. And I'm still looking into the idea of a 90-degree gearbox on here. So, yeah. And if I do that, of course, I can't go much higher with that bar. Well, other than that, I'm going to have to probably let it sit now until next weekend. Because I am out of time. It's going to be a little bit of a longer project than I thought because I'm doing a little bit extra on it. As in changing the wheel size and putting on the electronic PTO clutch and a bunch of other stuff on it. I kind of want to make it a little bit fancier, you know what I mean. Just a choo-ching! Holy crap, those ones are choo-ching. Must be a heavy load. Oh, right through the choo-ching cloud. Oh, I actually smell it too. That's pretty. Oh man, that almost smells like oh, that's weird. Oh, that's a very unique smell from that train. Huh. I wonder what the hell they're burning in there. It doesn't smell like diesel fuel. Almost smells like kerosene. That's kind of weird. Huh. Weird. Weird is right. Well, just stopped to give Proxy a quick walk back there. Almost at my house. And hope she doesn't have too many ticks. Or any ticks for that matter. But oh man, it's so beautiful out here. I love it. Oh sure, now they're gone. Oh, there it is. They're back. Hold on to her harness for a second. Yeah, I want to make a video outside. Even with tuck tape on top of there, they still tried to make a nest. Look at that, eh? And sure made a mess everywhere, and they were just in here behind me. Yeah, kind of don't want them there this year. Just brought a bunch of junk out here. Bunch of junk to go through. Yeah, got a plow for the tractor and everything. Ooh, a little bit of dust.